Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining me for our next installation in our Inside Fear-Free Practice Certification webinar series. Happy 2019 to everybody. My name is Rachel Abrams, and I am the Fear-Free Practice Certification Manager. And the focus of our discussion today will be culture, training, and leadership. Oh my! As with all the webinars in this series, we'll start with a high-level overview of the Fear-Free Practice Certification process. Then we'll move into the bulk of our discussion, which focuses on the culture, training, and leadership category, which has 5 standards associated with it, listed there for you: the new hire training, SOPs, fear-free advocates, the CE log, monthly meetings. And then we'll close out with a Q&A. What you'll do for that is type any questions you have in the chat area. I'll read the questions aloud and answer to the best of my ability. There are essentially 5 steps to the practice certification process. All of this information and more can be found on our practice certification page on the website, and that's located within the veterinary professional drop-down list. So the 5 steps are the application, the registration, the self-assessment, Fear-Free's review of the self-assessment, and the on-site visit. So very briefly, we'll walk through each one of those steps. That's my reminder to remind you that it should be your group leader that's leading this process. If you're not sure if you're your group's group leader or who your group leader is, please contact us. The best way to do that is wags@fearfreepets.com. So the first step is the application, and it's during this phase that your eligibility for practice certification is confirmed. You will submit an employee roster. It should have all of your team members, not only your fear-free certified individuals, but anyone else that works at the practice. And the numbers to remember, and again, these can be found on the website, but the numbers to remember are 25%, 100%, and 50% plus 1. So overall, a minimum of 25% of your staff must be fear-free certified and have an active membership. If you can't access the website, that means your membership is expired and thus not active. 100% is 100% of your on-site leadership management team must be certified and have an active membership. Again, there's additional information about that on the website, who might qualify for that category. And last but not least, the 50% plus 1 applies to your DVMs. So 50% plus 1 must be certified and have an active membership. Once your eligibility has been confirmed, you will receive a link to register. During the registration phase, you will pay a $500 non-refundable deposit. That will open up the practice certification dashboard. This is why it's important that group leaders do this process, because they are the only ones that will have a practice certification dashboard. Within the practice certification dashboard is your self-assessment. So the self-assessment is done online. It houses all the standards, some of which require uploads, some of which require write-ins. Once that is completed, you can submit it and you will attach a current employee roster. Please note that you have access to the standards before you make the decision to apply for practice certification. So also on the practice certification page on our website, you can download the standards ahead of time. You can also download the supporting examples that we have to help further explain the standards and provide additional resources. Once we receive your self-assessment, it will be reviewed. Most of the time, we'll have a follow-up call to discuss your self-assessment. So please know that it's not all or nothing once you submit your self-assessment. If there are any questions, anything that needs additional clarification, or anything that needs to be changed, we'll have that conversation and help you do what needs to be done to get to the next step, which is the on-site visit. So once your self-assessment is officially approved, we're able to schedule your on-site visit. You'll have a practice certification veterinarian consultant come to your practice and essentially walk through the standards with you and confirm that you're doing what you said you were doing. And also, they are a great resource for additional tips and tricks. And they'll send that information that they gather on their on-site visit back to Fear Free, and then we make the final decision as to whether or not to grant practice certification. If you have any questions about that, you are welcome again to refer back to the website. I've also done a webinar, one of these in the series that's on the process, so you can look for that. And of course, my email will be on the last slide of this presentation. You can email me directly as well. Okay. Within the standards, there are mandatory standards and optional standards. So the mandatory standards are pass-fail. Multiple categories have mandatory standards. There are some that have a not applicable option. So there are a few standards around boarding. If you don't provide boarding, you have a not applicable option. All of these are housed together in the practice certification dashboard in the mandatory section. The optional standards are on a point system. So there's a total number of points that you can earn for each category. And I have the 5 categories listed for you there. We'll be focusing in on the 4th one, culture, training, and leadership. You have to hit a certain amount of points to pass that category. There is a counter, so you'll know as you're going along whether you've met the minimum requirement or not. And these are housed independently in their respective categories. So diving into the bulk of our discussion today, which is culture, training, and leadership, and I wanted to start off with just making sure we were all on the same page as to why this was even a category for fear-free practice certification. And as many of you probably know, maybe you have some other folks that you work with that you want to be able to better explain it to them. For most practices, adapting the standards for fear-free practice certification is a significant culture shift on how you run your business, how you practice medicine, how you interact with your colleagues, and how you interact with your clients and patients. Obviously, each practice varies differently in where they're starting off, but for the vast majority, these are actually some pretty big changes. And cultural shifts are not easy. So if you're struggling a little bit, not to worry, you're not alone. We all struggle with change. Don't forget that the closed Facebook page for Fear-Free Certified Professionals is a great means to find information and inspiration. But again, cultural shifts are hard. They take work, it takes training, and it takes leadership. Those are all critical to establish, change, and maintain a practice's culture. So it's an important part of the certification process. The 5 standards in culture, training, and leadership involve new hire training, SOPs, fear-free advocates, a CE log, and monthly meetings. And the last 3 on the slide on your screen with the asterisk, those are in the optional section. So the new hire training and the SOPs are mandatory, but the other 3 are in the optional, so you don't have to do all of them. But I think if I do my job here today during this webinar, you'll leave understanding why all 3 are really important. All right, so new hire training. I've gotten lots of different stuff when it comes to new hire training. So know that there's no one perfect way to do this. For some practices, the basis of their new hire training is the requirement for all their employees to become fear-free certified, whether that's within 30, 60, or 90 days of employment. But I've seen a lot of different things submitted, from one page with fear-free key definitions to 5 pages of checklists of this is what you do the first week, the second week, the third week, the 4th week, and you sign off. So some of you may already have this in place. Some of you may be creating it for the first time. For those of you that are creating it for the first time, it can absolutely feel a bit overwhelming. Try not to let it be. Think of this as your starting ground, and as you move forward, you'll build on it piece by piece. But one place to start, and if this was all you submitted, it still could very easily be accepted for fear-free practice certification. But think about your top 10 do's and your top 10 don'ts in your practice as they pertain to fear-free. So if I were making this list, one of my top 10 do's might be always use your inside voice. And I've got a picture on the screen for you. This came during a practice certification in Sacramento, California, Country Oaks Pet Hospital, and they have this Yacker tracker, which I had never heard of, but apparently are used in early childhood education. Now, this is for the staff. It can be used in lots of different places in the hospital, but they have this at their front desk, and they always want to stay in the green zone. So the green zone means that they are talking at a low level. Yellow is getting a little bit loud, and red is too loud. So I just thought this was a fun and fabulous way to make sure you're always using your inside voices. As far as having a top 10 don'ts, again, this will be individual to each practice, but if I were making my list, one of them would be scruffing of cats is prohibited, not only because it tends to make things worse, but it is also prohibited in the fear-free certified practice. All right, there are a couple of SOPs that need to be submitted for this category. And just in general, the outline for an SOP, think about the purpose of your SOP, who's going to be responsible for upholding the SOP. Some SOPs lend themselves to having a list of equipment and or supplies, and then the bulk of it should be the procedural steps. If you've not already taken the complimentary CE course, The Vital Role of Client Services Representatives, please do yourself a favor and go ahead and take that course. It is just about an hour, and even though it's geared towards client service representatives, it's really applicable to everybody in the practice, and they have some sample SOPs in there, so it's a really helpful tool, including a template that you can download for SOPs. Also know that SOPs don't have to be perfect. Obviously, don't send in something that's terrible, right? I mean, we're not going to be ridiculous about it, but don't worry about making it perfect. What we're really looking for is the essence of fear-free and clarity. And if either of those needs a little work, then we'll work together to get it where it needs to be. All right. And last on our list are the 3 optional standards, which include having a fear-free advocate, having a fear-free or in general CE log, and having monthly meetings. And so I've included these all on one slide because they really go hand in hand. Your fear-free advocate may be your practice owner, maybe your hospital administrator or practice manager. If you're a larger practice, you may have a fear-free advocate for every department. So there's a CSR fear-free advocate, there's a tech one, there's a kennel assistant one, there's a DVM one. It really depends on the size of your hospital. But it's great to have a representative from each department to work together to help everybody with their fear-free learning. The CE log would be something that you would keep in the hospital. This can be kept electronically. It does not have to be a pen and paper log. But the basics that it would include is when somebody attended a CE event, or if you held one in the hospital, what date it was, what topics were covered, and who attended. On a side note, this can also be a really nice tool for any employee evaluations. So making sure they understand that attendance at CE meetings held within the practice are expected, and maybe they have to attend a certain amount. Otherwise, it's addressed at your employee during an employee review. And ideally, practices are holding monthly meetings. I have definitely seen practices that hold weekly meetings, twice a month meetings, but I would say at the very least monthly meetings, and have something include fear-free. So the focus doesn't have to be entirely on fear-free, although I also have had practices where they have 2 meetings a month. One meeting is general hospital topics. The second meeting of the month, or vice versa, is solely focused on fear-free. If you're just getting started with this or just getting started in putting fear-free on your monthly agenda, a couple tips for you. You can use what was taught to me as the www.eby. Again, that's www.eby, which is not a website, but stands for What Went Well and Even Better Yet. So perhaps you have 1 or 2 team members share a fear-free experience. They talk about what went well, and then together as a group, you work on what would make it even better yet next time if you're in a similar situation. Likewise, we have a ton of information on fear-free, whether it's something, an article in the education library, a podcast, a webinar, another complimentary course. Perhaps that is the topic of discussion for the fear-free party or meeting or your fear-free meeting. So lots of options there. So, believe it or not, that covers everything I wanted to talk about. That leaves us with a good bit of time for any questions that you might have. My email is on the screen for you there. My first and last name, rachel.abrams@fearfreepets.com. You are welcome to email me with any questions that you have about practice certification. If you want to ask some questions now, please feel free to type in the chat space and we'll try and get those answered for you. And it looks like we have one coming in now. Question from Jamie. Are there specific SOPs that need to be completed? Yes, Jamie, there are. And I will say there are not a giant number that you need, but for culture, training, and leadership, and I'm going to double check so that I don't misquote it. This category includes standard operating procedures that impact animals and or clients, and they have to include fear-free principles. So some of these, the examples that we give are restraint, euthanasia, ear cleaning, venipuncture, radiology. So for example, I had a nail trim SOP that was submitted to me during the practice certification process, and one piece of their nail trim SOP was that if it's been 15 minutes, regardless of how far you've gotten, you're done. And I really like that. I think that's helpful when we're cradling the emotional well-being of our patients. Another question from Rebecca. What is an appropriate time frame for requiring staff to complete their individual training so that we can move forward with practice certification? Rebecca, I would say it could easily be done within 2 months. It is definitely helpful to track it, and I also like to give a lot of positive reinforcement. So maybe celebrate when somebody completes a module, have a little contest who completes it first, and work with your industry partners. Obviously, the folks that are our sponsors would be great ones to partner with that for some little prizes. Question from Penny, do the SOPs need to be in a training log to be checked off as completed, or can they be in the Q&A section of the computer? I'm not sure I understand that question, Penny. If it's something that we can take offline, you can follow up with me via email. That would be great. Question from Michael, probably slightly off topic, but do certified practices need to differ to I think it's defer to fear-free certified trainers. Michael, technically no, because the fear-free certified trainers is still a relatively new option. I did do a webinar on that topic, so if you can look back on that, obviously they're great if you have them, but there are other ways to meet the standards of having a trainer refer to, and it's not required. Not everybody will have a trainer that you're able to refer to. Question from Catherine. I plan to propose fear-free certification to my practice partners, owners. I am one of them. Congratulations. Do you have any literature available to make this proposition? Ooh, Catherine, I don't, but if you can follow up with me via email, I'm happy to help you put something together. Question from Stephanie. I am a fear-free trainer. Yay, Stephanie, thank you. Are there specific SOPs I need to submit with my practices application process? No, they're not. If you happen to have some that meet the standard, you're welcome to submit them, but nothing specific. All right, thank you, Catherine. I'll look forward to your email, yours and Penny's. All right, another question from Penny. Fear-free likes to have most surfaces done in the exam room. What's the feeling about anal glands? So Penny, my first part of the answer to that would be definitely not in favor of expressing anal glands for the sake of expressing anal glands. So hopefully we're only messing around back there if the pet is having a problem. And because that is such a sensitive area, both physically and emotionally, I would recommend that some type of anti-anxiety or sedation be offered. And chances are that's going to be something that might occur in the treatment room. And I'm wondering if your question isn't around the fact that the smell is really bad and if it's close to the lobby. So that is not unreasonable. I would also say if the owner can come with you, that would work for me too. Question from Janet. Once a practice becomes certified, fear-free practice certification is included for all staff going forward, correct? So that can be reflected in the training log. Yes, Janet. Once a practice is certified, anyone who did not already have a fear-free membership gets one. That's part of the reason why at your first annual renewal, we do bump up the requirement of how many people need to be fear-free certified. And your question also reminded me to let everyone know that we do now have a CE tracker on the website. So any courses that you take will be logged in there as well. So that doesn't necessarily apply directly to this, but I just wanted to remind everybody about that. Okay, I'm gonna confirmation from Penny. And a thank you. You're most welcome. Got some other folks typing, so just waiting for those questions to pop up where I can see them. Where can we find the CSR Vital Role seminar you spoke about, Janet? That is in the, if you go to the courses section, that is in the veterinary professionals, it's in the complementary courses. Question from Susie. I am so sorry my appointments kept from joining on time. No problem. Will a transcript be available? Susie, I won't have a transcript available for you. This is being recorded, and I do have an encore presentation tonight at 7. So depending on how that goes, I pick one, and that recording will be posted to the website. Janet's, is that your dog in the picture? That is my dog. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we actually don't get snow very often. So being that he is a husky, he is very excited when we do get some snow, and it's very cute. I think he was looking at a squirrel in that picture. Got another comment coming in. All right. Outdoor appointments are suggested for some dogs. Are there rules about the area being enclosed? Penny, if you also check out the supporting examples information for that that standard, that option, yes, it should absolutely be enclosed. I actually have a nice picture of an option in the supporting examples. So the supporting examples is a second download off the practice certification page, and I don't recommend printing it out automatically because it's really long, in part because it does have some of those. Okay, I don't know if you guys had any interruption, but I just got a network error message. So picking back up where we apologize. There's a little something going on with my internet. I see the question from Aaron. Do you have recommendations or literature for using fear-free in an ER setting? Actually, we do have some stuff, Aaron. I do have a podcast that I did that addresses what to do when you can't feed your patient, so be sure to check that out. And there is a webinar on that as well, and I apologize, I don't know the title of it off the top of my head, but if you go to the resources and webinar page, there will be information there. If you can't find it, Erin, please email me and I'll help you find it. Got some other people typing, so just waiting for those. We have about 3 more minutes on the clock for our questions. Do you have any advice for practices that have registered for practice certification, are working through everything but need a boost? One of our hospitals is losing their drive and are a little overwhelmed. Janet, certainly if they are feeling overwhelmed, I would love to set up a time to chat with them, see what we can do to help relieve that burden. This should be something, it is going to be work, but it also should be fun. So let's see if we can set up some one-on-one time and figure out what's going to work for that practice. I think sometimes it does help to have a general timetable guideline that is in public viewing ability, whether that's literally something on the wall or in a digital space, so that everyone can see kind of where we're starting, where we're going, and when we want to get there. For the client education standards, do most clinics print out material and have accessible in exam rooms? Yes, Penny. Do know, too, that you can order a lot of our information. Anything from the toolbox can also be ordered via the store. So they're nice little glossy handouts. So that's an option as well. Otherwise, if you have an account with something like FedEx or Kinko's, you can also send them the PDFs and have them professionally printed so that you're not trying to take care of that, actually, have a CSR burdened with that if that's the case. Do you recommend offering a project completion bonus to staff to encourage them to complete their individual training? I hear mixed opinions on this. So, Rebecca, I would say you could. And again, it might be you have individual sort of prizes that they're working towards, whether it's, first module completed, first one to get halfway through, first one to complete the whole thing. I think those are options. I think, again, another option, and I would, again, lean on your industry partners, particularly our corporate sponsors, of, maybe if everybody completes their training by this date, we get this. And this would be individual to your practice, right? So, if it were me, I'd be like, oh, we're all going to go climbing at the indoor climbing gym. Maybe it's a pizza party, maybe it's something altogether different that you know about. Maybe you're all going to go do paint and wine some evening. So I absolutely think that can be done, and I think it can help motivate some people. I don't think it's necessary. I think the flip side of that coin is, particularly if the practice is paying for their certification, that should be reward enough, but that's just not how we're built. We're built to do things to be rewarded, and so if that's what you need to do to help them encourage their training, then go for it. But see if you can get some help in doing it so it's not all on you. All right. Well, we are right at about 3:30 on my clock. Rebecca has a few scragglers. You're not alone. So I'm going to wrap this webinar up. Again, my email is there. If you have any other questions or you want to discuss something further, please reach out to me via email and we will have that conversation. We'll do an encore presentation of this tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you want to send anyone over, you are welcome to. Otherwise, I want to say again, Happy New Year. Thank you for joining us for our inaugural 2019 Inside Practice Certification webinar. Have a great rest of your day.